One of the best ways that I find video topics is by scrolling through Reddit, Twitter, and just various websites. And recently, I came across a list that ranks some of the top 10 transfers from the transfer portal era. The article was released by CBS Sports, and honestly, after reading through the article, I really kind of disagreed with it. I didn't think their list of the top 10 transfers in recent memory was very good, and in today's video, we're going to take a look at this article, go through their list, and I'm going to talk about whether I agree or disagree with that player being ranked there, and I'm also going to offer some transfers who I think were more impactful. But before we get started, if you're a big fan of college football, be sure to subscribe to the channel, leave a like if you support today's video, and let me know what player, team, topic, or situation I can cover next. Now let's get started and talk about this list. So yeah, I'm obviously going off of a CBS Sports article, so I want to give them credit, but it started out as follows. The transfer portal has fundamentally reshaped college football, and while player movement has existed long before its official launch in 2018, the portal streamlined the process, and recent rule changes have only accelerated the trend, making it even more appealing for athletes to find new opportunities. More than 4,000 players have entered the portal during the 2024-25 cycle, but only a select few will make a major impact. But most of the most successful transfers don't just fit in, they change the trajectory of the new programs. From game-breaking quarterbacks to generational two-way stars, here are the 10 most impactful college football transfers of the portal era. At number 10, the article had Olu Oluwatimi, an offensive lineman from Michigan. Olu had a pretty typical career for a big-time player, as he started out at a prestigious high school in DeMatha Catholic in Maryland and would end up playing for Virginia. He wasn't the biggest recruit in the country, but was a guy who, if developed properly, could be really good. After that quick stop at Air Force coming out of high school, he'd end up becoming one of the 3 finalists for the Remington Trophy while he was with Virginia, and was one of the best centers in the country. He ended up deciding to enter the transfer portal, where he would then go to Michigan. The Wolverines were desperately looking to make a national title appearance and even win the whole thing, and this guy would anchor their offensive line. He ended up winning the Outland Trophy as the best interior lineman in college football, and was also a first-team All-American. He'd then get drafted in the 5th round with the 154th overall pick to the Seattle Seahawks, where he's still there. Okay, I think this guy is great. He's obviously really good as he's a first-team All-American as in the NFL, but to call him a top 10 transfer, I don't know. Maybe you can argue he's one of the most impactful transfers in the country, but I think Michigan's system and team as a whole is what won a title and not necessarily him. I think he's really good. I'd put him in the top 25, but I would not have him in the top 10. At number 9, they ended up saying Jared Verse from Florida State was a super impactful transfer. Jared Verse has one of the best stories in college football in recent memory, as the guy was good in high school, but ended up having to go to Albany. No offense to the Great Danes, but they're not exactly the pinnacle of college football, and his path to the NFL was extremely limited and pretty much impossible. He is honestly the defensive version of Cam Ward, as a guy who went from the FCS to making big money at the next level in the FBS. Verse would end up having 47 tackles with 9 sacks in 2022 for the Seminoles, and then would once again improve in 2023, finishing with 41 tackles and 9 sacks. This guy was absolutely ridiculous, as he was a back-to-back All-American for the Seminoles, helped return Florida State to national relevance, and was just a super athlete. He ended up getting drafted with the 19th overall pick to the Rams, and so far, he's had a really good career in the league. And honestly, I'd say this guy deserves to be where he is at, and I agree with this. Jameson Williams is one of the earliest transfers who made a big impact, as all the way back in 2021, he went from Ohio State to Alabama. Going back in time, he was a star player coming out of the St. Louis area and ended up committing to the Ohio State Buckeyes, but due to being stuck in a logjam behind a couple of future NFL players, Jameson would decide to enter the transfer portal after only having about 300 yards and 3 touchdowns with the Buckeyes. In his 1 year at the Alabama Crimson Tide, he would blow up. He became one of the best receivers in all of college football, finishing with 79 catches for 1,572 yards and 15 touchdowns. This guy was absolutely awesome, but unfortunately tore his ACL in the title game, and that sort of hurt his transition to the NFL. He ended up breaking out in 2024 with Detroit, finishing with 58 catches for 1,000 yards and 7 touchdowns, but I would definitely say Jameson Williams was super impactful, as he badly stepped up when Alabama needed him, and if not for that torn ACL, they really could have won the national championship that year. At number 7, they had Jayden Daniels from LSU. Jayden was one of the top rising quarterbacks back in 2019 and was a borderline 5-star. He committed to Herm Edwards in Arizona State, where he started immediately for the Sun Devils and had a really good year. Unfortunately, things would sort of backfire as he was terrible in 2020 and then really regressed in 2021. Sure, he had 2,300 yards, but he had as many interceptions as he had touchdowns. Looking for a fresh start, Brian Kelly gave him an opportunity at LSU, where he blew up in 2022. He won the job and threw for 3,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. He was solid and could have gone off to the league, but decided to come back for one more year. This is where he absolutely dominated, as Daniels completed 72% of his passes, threw for 3,812 yards, and had 40 touchdowns. To go alongside that, he also ran for 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns on the ground, and ran away with the Heisman Trophy. Daniels won the Heisman, but his defense failed him, so he did not end up getting a chance to go off to the playoff. Jayden Daniels is now a superstar with the young Washington Commanders, and this guy has been a total gem. I would definitely argue he should be higher on the list, and honestly, I would probably put him in the top 3. The next guy on the list is last year's Heisman Trophy winner and Travis Hunter. We all know Hunter's story by now, as he was a #1 recruit coming out of high school, was originally committed to Florida State, and then would decide to follow Coach Prime over to Jackson State. Travis Hunter has had quite the career, as he was a great athlete in his first year at Jackson State, and then followed Prime once again to Colorado. He was a two-way star who finished with nearly 175 catches and 2,000 receiving yards and 20 touchdowns in his 2 years in Colorado, but also made a huge impact on defense, finishing with 16 pass deflection and 7 interceptions. People are going to call me a hater for this, but I don't think Travis Hunter deserved to win the Heisman last year. Was he the most impressive player in college football, playing both sides of the ball? Yeah. But I don't think he deserved the Heisman. Colorado didn't even sniff the playoff, and he was not the best receiver or best corner. Why he got the Heisman is beyond me, but it is what it is. Travis Hunter is a phenomenal athlete and will do really well at the next level. He's currently a rookie in Jacksonville and will be used in more ways than none. This guy was absolutely unbelievable, but I would have him ranked a couple spots lower. And number 5, we have to talk about Caleb Williams. He was the #1 quarterback in the country in the 2021 high school class from Gonzaga Prep, and he arrived at Oklahoma to be the next big thing under Lincoln Riley. After Spencer Rattler struggled, Caleb Williams had a couple of magical moments and took over the starting job. After having early Heisman hype, he would deliver in his first season at USC by way of the portal, and he threw for 4,500 yards with 42 touchdowns. He was the best player in college football that year, but USC lost a couple of dumb games and missed out on the playoff. 2023 would kind of show his weaknesses, as after the team hit a losing streak, he was pouting, he quit on the team, and his performance went down. He still had 3,600 yards and 30 touchdowns, but there were definitely some question marks around him. He was still the consensus #1 overall player, so he got drafted #1 by the Bears, and last year had a solid first rookie year. Caleb Williams has plenty of potential, and I sort of like where he's at. I wouldn't move him up, and I wouldn't move him down. Alright, at number 4, I'm pretty sure CBS Sports decided to put Caleb Downs there just to generate clicks. I think Caleb Downs is excellent. He was a 5-star recruit, was one of the top players on Alabama's defense as a true freshman, and was a huge anchor in last year's national title run for Ohio State. But he is not the 4th best transfer in the transfer portal era. I think this guy is pretty similar to Olu from Michigan, as he was a part of an excellent system. Ohio State won the title last year because they checked pretty much every box. They did their roster pretty much perfectly, and Caleb Downs was not the reason why they won a national championship last year. Is this guy extremely talented, and will he be a top 5 pick in the NFL next year? Probably. But to say this guy is more impactful or better than 3 straight Heisman Trophy winners is just ludicrous to me. I would keep Caleb Downs probably in the top 25, but he would not even make my top 10. At number 3, we need to talk about Kenneth Walker Jr. After being a 3-star recruit in high school, Kenneth Walker would blossom while he was at Wake Forest, finishing with a combined 1,300 yards and about 17 touchdowns in 2 years. He would make his move over to Michigan State, where he honestly could have won the Heisman. He helped Mel Tucker and the Spartans blow up in 2021, finishing with 1,600 yards and 18 touchdowns, which included that crazy performance against Michigan. If Walker had been a little bit better against Ohio State, and Sparty wouldn't have fallen off, I think there was a chance that Kenneth could have grabbed that Heisman spot. This guy was absolutely insane, and would eventually get drafted in the 2nd round by the Seahawks. So far, Walker has been good for them, but I think could be better. His ranking at number 3 is quite tricky. This guy was a hidden gem in the portal and almost won the Heisman, but still, he didn't. It's hard for me to justify placing him over guys like Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels, and Travis Hunter, especially when Michigan State fell off towards the end of the year. And if this list was about the top 10 portal steals, then I'd probably have him in the top 2. At number 2 on the list, they had Justin Fields. Fields was a prodigy quarterback coming out of the state of Georgia and would decide to stay home and play for the Bulldogs. But after not being able to dethrone Jake Fromm, he ended up finding an excuse to leave for Ohio State, where he got an immediate waiver. But in his 2 years, he was really good. He went 20-2 as a starter, threw for 5,400 yards and 63 touchdowns, was good on the ground, and also went to back-to-back playoff appearances. He also was the last Buckeye quarterback to defeat Michigan, but putting him at number 2 to me is absurd. Justin Fields didn't win the Heisman, and he didn't win a playoff game or a national championship. Obviously, he is good, but what's the rationale for putting him at number 2 ahead of guys who have won the Heisman or won national titles? I have no idea. At number 1 on the list, they had Michael Penix Jr., who originally was a 3-star recruit coming out of high school and was committed to Tennessee, but got his offer pulled and went to Indiana. He ended up struggling with injuries badly while he was there, but had some really great moments and some flash, especially that 2-point conversion against Penn State. After a disastrous 2021 season, he'd reunite with his former offensive coordinator Kalen DeBoer, where he'd put up ridiculous numbers at Washington. He was definitely going under the radar, but in his 2 years at Washington, the guy had nearly 10,000 yards and about 70 touchdowns. He also led Washington to the college football playoff. He was perfect against Oregon and just made magic happen. Honestly, he was one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time and ended up going in the top 10 to the Falcons, but putting him at number 1, I don't really get either. Sure, this guy was so much fun to watch and he got Washington back to the playoff, but again, he didn't win the Heisman either, didn't go number 1 overall, or didn't win a title. Honestly, maybe I missed the criteria and point of this article, but to me, I just don't really get it. I don't think Justin Fields or Caleb Downs should have been all that high. I don't get why Jayden Daniels and Caleb Williams were so low. I think Jamison Williams should have been higher. Personally, looking back at this, I would not have Jared Verse, Olu Owatami, or Caleb Downs in my top 10. I would instead have 3 more quarterbacks to fill it out, as I would have Cam Ward, as his 2 transfers were super impactful. I would have Bo Nix, as he put up crazy numbers after transferring over from Auburn. And then I also have Stetson Bennett. I mean, people forget that Stetson Bennett transferred in from the JUCO level, and this guy won 2 national championships with Georgia when that looked nearly impossible. I still, once again, don't really understand the criteria for this list, but as I said, I would add 3 quarterbacks and take a couple of these guys away and move some things around. But what do you guys think? What did I get right and wrong? Who, in your opinion, are the 10 most impactful transfers? And what topic should I do next? I have no idea if this video will do well, and I'll probably get a lot of trash down in the comment section, but be sure to let me know your thoughts, leave a like if you want to support today's video, subscribe if you're new, and check out one of the videos on the end screen. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.